In the year 70 CE, the greatest city in the Jewish world stood on the brink of destruction. One man looked at the disaster unfolding around him and realized that if Judaism was going to survive, it would have to change. This is History Makers, a series where I introduce you to the people who shaped and reshaped Jewish history. Our next history maker is Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai. By the middle of the 1st century CE, Judea had become a province of the Roman Empire. Tensions between Jews and Rome had been building for decades, and in 66 CE, those tensions exploded into open revolt. At first, the rebellion appeared successful. Roman garrisons were defeated. Jerusalem remained in Jewish hands. Many believed redemption was at hand. But Rome was not another regional kingdom. It was the most powerful empire the Mediterranean world had ever seen. By 68 CE, Roman armies under Vespasian had begun systematically crushing the revolt. Town after town fell. Refugees flooded into Jerusalem, and inside the city, conditions deteriorated rapidly. Different Jewish factions turned on one another. Political rivalries quickly became political violence. Food supplies were destroyed by one faction, known as the Zealots, to force the conflict. Civil war erupted inside a city already facing an external enemy. The Roman siege hadn't even begun in full. Jerusalem was already consuming itself. Yohanan Ben Zakkai watched all of this unfold. He was a leading Pharisaic sage, part of a movement that emphasized Torah study, interpretation, and religious life beyond the temple itself. That distinction would prove important because while many still believe Jerusalem could be saved, Ben Zakkai appears to have reached a different conclusion. The city might survive, but it probably wouldn't. The temple might survive, but once again, it probably wouldn't. The question was no longer how to win the war. The question was, what comes after losing it? According to rabbinic tradition, Ben Zakkai's students smuggled him out of Jerusalem inside a coffin, and whether that story happened exactly as described is impossible to know. What matters is what it represents. Ben Zakkai left the city and sought an audience with the Roman commander Vespasian. There he made a request that would echo through Jewish history. Not for Jerusalem, not for independence, not even for the temple. Instead, he asked, "Give me Yavne and its sages." Yavne, a small town on the Mediterranean coast. At first glance, it seems like an astonishingly modest request, but Ben Zakkai understood something many of his contemporaries didn't. States can fall, cities can burn, temples can be destroyed, but institutions of learning, they can preserve a civilization. In 70 CE, Jerusalem fell. The Second Temple was destroyed. The center of Jewish religious life disappeared in fire and blood. That catastrophe transformed Judaism forever. For centuries, sacrificing the temple has stood at the heart of Jewish practice. Now there was no temple, no altar, no priestly service, no sacrificial system. Many ancient religions would have collapsed under those circumstances. Judaism didn't. And one reason it didn't is because figures like Yohanan Ben Zakkai had already begun imagining a different future. At Yavne, a new center of Jewish learning emerged. Prayer increasingly took the place of sacrifice. Study became a sacred act. The authority of rabbis gradually expanded. The foundations were laid for the development of the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the rabbinic tradition that would sustain Jewish life for nearly 2,000 years. It's important not to exaggerate. Ben Zakkai didn't single-handedly create rabbinic Judaism. That process involved generations of scholars and communities. But he stood at one of the crucial turning points. He recognized that preserving Judaism would require more than preserving buildings. It would require preserving ideas. When people think about the destruction of the Second Temple, they often focus on what was lost. Yohanan Ben Zakkai focused on what could still be saved. And in doing so, he helped guide Judaism through one of the greatest crises in its history. Not by winning a war, not by rebuilding a city, but by ensuring that a tradition could outlive both. And that is why Rabbi Yohanan Ben Zakkai is my latest history maker.